In 2021, the town of Waukesha, Wisconsin gathered to kick off the holiday season with their annual parade. The year before, the parade had been canceled due to COVID, so people were excited to resume festivities. However, the excitement that day turned to horror. Darrell Brooks was mad at his ex-girlfriend and decided to take his rage out on innocent people. He drove his SUV directly into the people in the parade. He injured 62 people and killed 6 people, including 1 child. It scarred the community of Waukesha forever and shocked the entire country, because how could somebody do such an atrocious thing and hurt so many innocent people? Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Anne, but I also go by my nickname Nini. I like to focus on Midwest true crime because I'm a Minnesota farmer's daughter. Today we're going to go to Wisconsin and talk about the Christmas parade attack committed by Darrell Brooks. This case was recommended by Meowser0, so thank you very much for that suggestion. This occurred just 2 years ago, so the wounds, both mental and physical, are still fresh. Waukesha is a suburb of Milwaukee and has a population of about 70,000. It is such a charming town. The downtown area is gorgeous, the buildings are neat, and there's a river that runs through it. Every Sunday before Thanksgiving, the town held a parade that marched down Main Street. In 2020, the parade was canceled due to COVID, so when it resumed in 2021, after a year of social distancing, people were excited to gather and celebrate the holiday season. The theme of the parade that year was comfort and joy. The parade was held on November 21st, 2021. It started at 4 p.m. at the intersection of Main and White Rock. The route went down Main Street through the downtown area to where the street turned. The streets were lined with crowds of people as parade members walked past with floats, marching bands, throwing out candy, all that fun stuff that comes with the parade. Around the same time the parade started, 39-year-old Darrell Brooks confronted his ex-girlfriend near Frame Park. Earlier that month, he hit her with his SUV, attempting to run her over. He had been arrested for hitting her with his vehicle, but had been let out on bond on November 19th. Obviously, he was mad at her for getting arrested, and he confronted her near Frame Park. Around 4:35 p.m., someone called 911 and said that there was a fight. But Darrell got into his mother's red 2010 Ford Escape and fled on White Rock before police arrived. He was full of rage. Darrell turned onto Hartwell Avenue, then reached the intersection of Hartwell and Main Street, which had a police barricade set up to stop people from driving down Main Street due to the parade. Darrell saw the parade and decided that would be an opportunity for him to take out his frustration. Around 4:40 p.m., he drove past that police barricade and down Main Street going about 40 miles an hour, directly into the route of vehicles, floats, and people. A lot of people had their cell phones out recording the parade at the time the attack occurred, so there's a lot of footage of the attack. There were also security cameras on the buildings. A security camera on the Waukesha Historical Society caught Darrell driving towards the parade. At the start of one clip from someone's cell phone, a little girl is dancing in the street and Darrell goes speeding past, just barely missing her. He continues on down Main Street and starts deliberately hitting people. His goal was to hit as many people as possible. Some people started screaming, but some were unsure of what was happening. It's eerie because you hear people screaming over the sounds of Christmas music. I'm going to play a compilation of some of the cell phone footage, and nothing graphic is shown, but I do want to warn it could still be hard to watch. If you prefer to skip it, I will put a timestamp so you can skip it.
Get out the way! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Darrell reached the end of Main Street where it turns, and a cop shot at his vehicle, but Darrell kept going. Chaos erupted. Police called for backup and ambulances and started to track down Darrell. People on Main Street were screaming and crying.
What just happened? A car? Oh my God!
Yeah, car hit the people on the street.
And it was going fast too.
There's like 7 injured that way. There's so many down there.
People were yelling for their loved ones, not knowing if they had been hit or if they were safe.
Chelsea,
With my mama.
Those not hit were trying to tend to the injured people.
We got about 10 to 15 people down in the street. We also got multiple critical cases.
I literally saw roughly 10 people bounce off of that car, and you could hear thud, 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 thud as he drove through that, which is a sound I'll never forget.
Darrell crashed his car, then walked to the home of a man who didn't know him and was unaware of what had happened in the parade. Darrell told him he was homeless and asked if he could use his phone to check on his Uber. Police were able to track Darrell to that house and arrested him.
I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please? I'm homeless. Huh?
Hands up! Put your hands where I can see them!
Whoa!
Hands up!
What is your name?
Brooks. We have one male. Darrell. Did I do something?
That is yet to be determined, sir.
This was a massive tragedy. Darrell injured 62 people and he killed 6 people. The first person Darrell hit who died was 8-year-old Jackson Sparks. Jackson loved sports and loved to be outside, usually catching frogs. He was a little shy, but his dad described him as a ball of energy. Jackson had been marching with his baseball team, the Waukesha Blazers. His 12-year-old brother Tucker had been near him and also hit. Tucker recovered and survived. A total of 16 children had been hit that night. Jackson suffered traumatic brain damage and underwent brain surgery, but they were unable to save him and he passed away a couple days after the attack. The family donated his organs and helped save the lives of 5 people, including a little girl who received his heart. The next fatality was 53-year-old Jane Coolidge. She worked for Citizens Bank and was marching with her company's float. She had been married for 22 years to John. They had 3 children and 3 grandchildren. John said Jane was the rock that held their family together. Jane had a positive outlook on life and never said a bad word about anybody. She also donated her organs. The next people Darrell killed were all from the Dancing Grannies. This was a group that started in 1984 from an exercise class and consists of women who dance at various events. The only requirement is that you have to be a grandmother. Tamara Durand was 52 and had recently joined the Dancing Grannies. She worked as a hospice chaplain. She had been married to David for 8 years. She had 3 children and 1 grandchild who she babysat so her daughter could go to nursing school. She ran every morning and also loved to travel. David said Tamara was happiest when she was dancing. Her obituary said Tamara danced home to Jesus. Virginia Sorensen, who went by Ginny, was 79 and had been married to David for 56 years. She absolutely loved to dance, and that was how she had met her husband because she taught him how to do the French can-can at a church dance. She loved to care for people and became a nurse. She also loved to care for animals and garden. She had 3 children and several grandchildren. She had been a member of the Dancing Grannies for 19 years. She couldn't dance anymore due to some medical issues, so she became the group's choreographer. Leanna Owen was 71 and had been a member of the Dancing Grannies for 12 years. She looked so petite and just an adorable little thing. She was married to Mike and they had 2 sons and a few grandchildren. They divorced, but she and Mike stayed close friends. She loved being part of the Dancing Grannies and treated the other women like sisters. Leanna was known for having iron will and a warm smile. She loved animals and rescued several cats and dogs in her life. Just a couple months before the attack, Ginny and Leanna appeared in a segment for CBS News about the Dancing Grannies.
Meet the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies.
Just take those old records on the shelf.
They can move, groove, and maybe even outbeat you on the dance floor. Just ask Lee Owen.
Can you keep up with the group?
Oh, you bet I can. Yeah. I'm encouraging them. Come on, come on. It's just nice to get to know, the different grannies. It's nice to get to know their families. When one does retire or quits or whatever, it's not only them, it's their family that goes. A lot of the husbands help in the parades, so you miss them too. It's great exercise, and I think it keeps us young. There were some kids there waiting for a bus. We had our Dancing Granny shirts on. And this one girl goes, "You're Dancing Grannies?" And a whole bunch of them got up and came over and started talking to us. And it's like, oh, kind of like minor celebrities.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Even incorporating a choreographer,
7 and 8.
Jenny Swanson.
10 and 11.
A blessing to the team for 19 years, whipping them into tip-top shape.
She's like the heart and soul, honest to God.
I want it from the hip and I want it to matter. I love dancing, and now that I can't with my surgery, it's like I lost a best friend. But the dancing grannies had a place for me here, choreography, and being an instructor. That's a really important part of my life, especially now where I can't dance. I love it, and I love the ladies. They're my family. They're my friends. You're all in sync. I told you, just like the Rockettes.
We all truly, I think, love each other too. We're like sisters.
Wilhelm Haspel was 81. He was born in Germany but came to the United States with his family when he was 15. Being active was important to him, and probably why he was able to march in the parade at 81 years old. He was an avid hunter, went to the YMCA every day, and danced around the house with his wife of 61 years, Lola. They had a son and daughter together, and family was very important to him. Wilhelm was a handyman and kind of a jack of all trades who was talented in home improvement projects. He was always willing to help friends and family. Wilhelm kept his German accent, and younger family members loved to listen to him tell stories about growing up in Germany. His wife Lola was a member of the Dancing Grannies. Wilhelm helped out the group. He succumbed to his injuries the day after the attack. What kind of person would have that much anger that they would deliberately hit almost 70 people with their SUV? Darrell Brooks was born in Wisconsin on February 21, 1982. When you look at his criminal record, it's obvious he's someone who will never learn from his mistakes or make any effort to become a functional member of society. In my opinion, he should have been locked up long before the parade happened and the key should have been thrown away. But some of his crimes were committed in different states, and the states didn't communicate to each other. So when he was arrested in one state, they didn't know about the other crimes that he committed in a different state, and he was able to just slip by. Darrell's criminal record started in 1999 when he was 17, when he was charged with battery and sentenced to 6 months in jail. In 2002, he was charged with obstruction and possession of marijuana and sentenced to 70 days in jail. In 2005, he was charged with obstruction, but didn't show up in court, so a bench warrant was issued. Darrell left Wisconsin and moved to Nevada, where he got a 15-year-old pregnant when he was in his early 20s. He pleaded guilty to felony statutory sexual seduction and was sent to a Reno, Nevada jail. A documentary about meth was made in 2007 called Crystal Darkness, and Darrell appeared in that video from jail.
I wasn't a human anymore. I was just something vile, disgusting.
Darrell was released in September 2008 and moved back to Wisconsin. He was sentenced for the 2005 obstruction case and received 2 days in jail. In 2010, Darrell got in an argument with a woman and shoved her to the ground and tried to strangle her. He was charged with strangulation, battery, and criminal damage to property, but accepted a plea deal that dismissed all charges except strangulation. He was sentenced to 90 days in jail and 3 years probation. That right there seems like an injustice to me too. I mean, he tried to strangle somebody and he only received 90 days in jail. In 2011, Darrell was pulled over for not wearing his seatbelt and he tried to flee, so he was charged with resisting an officer. His probation was revoked and he was sent back to jail for 11 months. He was later sentenced to 37 days in jail for resisting the officer. Due to his sex crimes in Nevada, Darrell was on the sex offender registry, but he didn't comply with it and gave them a false address. He was arrested in 2016 for failing to obey sex offender laws. He didn't show up in court and a warrant in Nevada was issued for him. During all the arrests that occurred in Wisconsin prior to the parade attack, Wisconsin had no idea that Darrell was a registered sex offender, because that crime had occurred in a different state. It's frustrating. In Milwaukee on July 24, 2020, Darrell got in a fight with his nephew and friend, and Darrell shot at them. He was charged with recklessly endangering safety and felony possession of a firearm. He was held in jail pending trial. His bail was originally $10,000, but later reduced to just $500, which is obviously easier to afford, so he posted bail on February 9, 2021, and was let out. While all this was going on, Darrell was neglecting to pay child support for his children, so he was just an upstanding citizen all the way around. In March of 2021, Waukesha County charged him with violation of court orders, but he only received 120 days in jail. But it was a stayed sentence and only imposed if he didn't pay what he owed in child support within 2 years. That's so pathetic. There were multiple arrests at this point just in the state of Wisconsin. So why is the state of Wisconsin looking at him for the child support stuff and be like, yeah, something tells me he's going to do the right thing, so we won't put him behind bars? In May of 2021, Darrell went to Georgia and beat up his girlfriend in a hotel room. Darrell was arrested for domestic violence, but he was released on a signature bond where he signed a document promising to return for future court dates. His first court date for that domestic violence case was in Georgia in October of 2021, but not surprisingly, Darrell did not show up. Meanwhile, in Wisconsin, he still had an open case for when he shot at his nephew and his friend. That trial had been set to begin in the summer of 2021, but the courts were very backlogged at this point due to COVID, so his trial was delayed. In the meantime, Darrell got to be a free man. On November 2nd, 2021, Darrell got into a fight with his ex-girlfriend at a gas station, and he hit her with his mom's Ford Escape. Darrell was arrested. During his intake at the Milwaukee County Jail, they did a criminal background search using the National Crime Information Center, but Nevada had not entered information into that database about him failing to appear in court, and Georgia hadn't entered information about his domestic violence case. So like I said, the states were not talking to each other. I think everything would have turned out a lot differently if Wisconsin, Georgia, and Nevada were all aware of all of the crimes Darrell had been committing. While in jail in Milwaukee, Darrell called his ex-girlfriend and threatened her to tell police that he had not hurt her. These calls were obviously recorded. On November 5th, he was formally charged with recklessly endangering safety with domestic abuse assessments, disorderly conduct, obstructing an officer, and misdemeanor battery. Despite a pretrial risk assessment that said Darrell was a fairly high risk for release from jail, his bail was set at just $1,000. After the parade attack, the prosecutor's office received backlash for that low amount, and they did admit that it was inappropriately low. They said it was human error and the ADA was overworked. On November 11th, Darrell's mother paid his $1,000 bail. He was let out of the Milwaukee County Jail, but sent to the Waukesha County Jail due to his child support charges. On November 16th, Darrell appeared in court for that child support case. The prosecutor wanted Darrell put in jail immediately, but Darrell made up some sob story that he couldn't pay child support because he had been in jail in Georgia from April to September, which was a flat-out lie because he didn't commit a crime in Georgia until May. And plus, there were court records that showed that Darrell had appeared in court in Milwaukee in person in June, but nobody verified his story. And even if he had been telling the truth, why would that be something that a person should be given grace over? Why should you feel sorry for somebody for not being able to pay child support because they were in jail for committing another crime? Court Commissioner David Herring postponed Darrell's jail sentence and released him on his own recognizance. Darrell walked out of jail on November 19th, 2021, 2 days before the parade. After he was arrested after the parade attack, Darrell was charged with 6 counts first-degree murder and dozens of other felonies in relation to the parade attack. He pleaded not guilty. His defense lawyer claimed Darrell was high on weed when he drove through the parade. In December, additional charges of intimidating a witness were added in relation to him calling his ex-girlfriend from jail to threaten her to change her story, and he also received domestic abuse charges for attacking her right before he drove through the parade. The trial started in October 2022. By this point, Darrell had gotten rid of his lawyers and decided to represent himself. And OMG. It was a circus because Darrell is a very arrogant person. He thinks he knows everything that's right. And obvious by his criminal record, he doesn't think the rules apply to him. He constantly objected. He took his clothes off at one point.
Who is you?
Darrell Brooks, the defendant, seated at the table.
Let the record reflect that I do not identify by that name, nor do I know anybody by that name. I state every time I come into your courtroom, Your Honor, that that is not my name, nor do I consent or agree to being called that name. I'm merely here as a third-party intervener on behalf of my client.
At one point, he built a fort of boxes around his table so he could hide. The trial was overseen by Judge Jennifer Darrell, and oh my gosh, that poor woman. But she handled his ridiculousness so professionally.
It threw people off a loop. They weren't ready for it. They scared of it. That's what it is. Come on, man.
Mr. Brooks.
Come on, man. Stop.
When you
Stop
aren't
it.
even
Stop it.
letting
You're a
me
public
ask the
servant, Your Honor.
questions.
I respect your courtroom. I respect you. You're a public servant, though. Your job is to be the referee. Like, I don't even want to be in here that much longer. Just do what you got to do so I can get up out of here. I'm tired of being in the courtroom that has no integrity whatsoever. How can you even call yourself a
Mr.
judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of
I need to make a record too.
You don't.
When am I going to get the chance to do that?
All right. I need to make a record. He's being removed to the other courtroom. He is yelling at me. He's not going to let me make a statement. The record should
Where's the
reflect
contract between you
that
and I?
Mr. Brooks
If it's
is
criminal,
yelling at me.
what is the crime?
He is.
Who makes the claim? And what is
I will make the record when we get back. I will step off. But Mr. Brooks, you're being
It ain't
taken
no
to the next
Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks. Don't try to address me
Thank
like
you.
that, like we cool. You don't have no integrity. How can you even call yourself a judge?
I would like to provide the defendant and the court with a copy.
So that had to be said. So it's the defendant.
That's not how it was said.
That was how I said. You want to run the record back?
Mr. Brooks.
So I'm the only one. I got one. I
Mr.
got
Brooks.
one ear that work, and I heard that.
This
Come on,
is
man.
to benefit you so
No,
that
it's
you
not.
understand
Ain't none of
your
this to benefit
witness.
me.
Your Honor, when I leave the table, I'm away from the courtroom and I have to elevate my voice. This is the
So she had to
alleged
elevate her
record of
voice
Abel
just for that.
Stop talking.
Come on, man. Like, I don't know who y'all be thinking y'all fooling. I accept the value in return for value this document.
One more interruption and you're going to be removed to the next courtroom.
That's what you want to do anyway.
It's not what I want to do. Do not interrupt Attorney Opper.
So can
Your
you
Honor,
tell,
I
can you
believe he
explain-
has 7 prior criminal convictions via OWI second from 1997, criminal trespass to dwelling from 2006.
All right, I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
I got requests. It ain't like they gonna be honored though. Cause
As it relates to the jury instructions, sir, what are you?
I heard what the hell you said, man.
Mr. Brooks, that was very disrespectful.
Yeah, and I've been getting disrespected since the beginning of this whole process. So welcome to the club. You sit up here and do everything you're doing, and think God don't see what you're doing. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Mr. Brooks, do you have any requests as it relates to the jury
Yeah,
instructions?
I can hear what you're saying. I can hear what you're saying.
You just told me you didn't.
Own Facebook account as well. The court is well
Objection.
aware.
He said social
There's
media. He
nothing
didn't say what it
Hold on,
was.
sir. Stop interrupting. We have to make a record of it. You've
Then make the record
interrupted multiple times. I've been abundantly patient
record
with
clear.
you. Again, another interruption. So you need to be quiet and let the state make a record. Stop gesturing at
asking me
me.
to be quiet?
Stop rolling your eyes at me.
Are you?
Stop
I'm
mumbling.
looking right at you. I'm not rolling my eyes.
No, you
I'm
have
looking.
throughout. I've seen it
I'm
and I've made note
I'm
of
looking
it.
at you. Okay, so are you asking me to be quiet or are you telling me to be quiet?
Go ahead, Attorney Opper.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm gonna take that
And
as
just
asking.
to,
I am going to move on.
If
from
I
this
hadn't done
topic.
that, it would have
Mr.
been a
Brooks,
big
I'm
thing.
advising you.
Are you asking me?
I'm advising you, sir.
Oh, okay.
I'm
I don't know what that
advising you
means.
to sit down
I
and
don't
be
know what that
quiet.
means.
And if you interrupt me again, you are on notice that you will forfeit your right to be present
So
in
you're
this
holding me in
trial.
contempt.
Mr.
For the
Brooks,
entire trial? Did you say the entire trial?
I never said any such
You said
thing.
for the trial. So what do
Please?
you mean? I'm asking, what do you mean?
Mr. Brooks, you continue to
That is
come at
not,
me.
I don't consent to being called
You
that name.
continue to fight with me.
I'm
You
not
are
fighting
being
with you.
disrespectful.
I'm not fighting with you. I'm not.
I'm
But
going to give you
said I
one
would have
last
the chance to make the
opportunity to
record.
sit down and be quiet so I can make a finding
Are you
as it
asking
relates
me
to
to
other
do
things.
that? Are you asking me
I don't
to
need
do
to
that?
ask, I'm telling you. Thank you.
Not everybody thought that Judge Darrow did a good job. A lot of people were frustrated and felt like she gave Darrell way too much leniency and allowed him to go on some rants and that she should have put her foot down more. But I understand why she didn't, because she has to give him as fair a trial as possible so that he can't have any grounds for appeal. If she didn't let him talk in some situations, maybe he could have come back on appeal and then claim that as him not being allowed to have a fair trial or something like that. But also, I think she did it because she is much smarter than him when it comes to psychological manipulation. Darrell Brooks is a major narcissist who has to be in control, and he likes to emotionally abuse people. And you see him trying to do this throughout the entire trial. He interrupted her probably, I'm not exaggerating, 100 times, maybe even 200 times or more. And just imagine that if you're having a conversation with somebody and they kept interrupting you, even if it was a 5-minute conversation, just think how frustrated you would get. And this was the entire trial that he did this. But she kept her cool. Darrell wants to get under people's skin. He wants to piss you off. He wants to push you to your breaking point because he gets off on that. And by her not allowing him to get under her skin, and she remained patient and she remained calm and she not raise her voice, he didn't win. And I think that was brilliant on her part. Darrell's defense was that his SUV had mechanical issues. He also tried to claim it wasn't him driving the SUV, even though there's literally video footage of him driving it. He even tried to say that he honked before he hit people, so that meant he didn't try to kill anyone. He tried to claim he was a sovereign citizen, and I'm not even joking, he tried to call the state of Wisconsin to the stand. He said because the state of Wisconsin was an entity and not a person, they couldn't file charges against him. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and found Darrell guilty of all charges. During the sentencing, victims who Darrell had hit and family members of the victims he killed were allowed to give statements. As they talked about their injuries or the fear that Darrell caused or what it was like to grieve over their loved ones, Darrell constantly rolled his eyes, looked bored, would pound his chest. He even interrupted a couple times and was just his usual ass of a self.
I can honestly say I have never felt the hatred I do for one person like I do this man. The very man that drove his vehicle into my 9-year-old baby girl who was excitedly walking in the Christmas parade. What Darrell Brooks does deserve is to be sentenced to the maximum time allotted for each one of his horrific convictions, as he has given us as a community a life sentence of these memories.
I'm here today as well as a plaintiff joining a criminal complaint against Mr. Brooks with a claim against him for the damage that he has brought not only to Waukesha, but to my family. And I'm also appearing as a posthumous spokesman for the victim, my sister Tamara Durant, who can't appear here today on her own behalf because Mr. Brooks killed her. Your Honor, I urge you to provide Mr. Brooks a lifetime in prison and to contemplate which side of Christ he wishes to hang on.
I had no idea then the nightmare that was coming my way. Nor did I know that it would be the last time I would hear Jackson's voice and see his smile. I wish I would have known then that the hug he gave me before I went to sit down was the last hug I would ever get from him. I would have held on to him a lot longer. Do you have any idea how gut-wrenching it is to have to explain your 12-year-old son that his little brother isn't going to make it? His injuries are too extensive for his little body to come back from, and that he won't be coming home with us ever again.
I want to thank the first responders and medical personnel at the parade who rendered aid to the injured and attempted to save my mother's life that night, and a nurse that we met at the memorial one night by chance, Sarah, who held my mother's hand, but she was already dead. A severed spine, multiple skull fractures, pelvic fractures, and her Christmas hat wedged under the windshield wipers of the Ford SUV. There was no ambulance ride or hospital stay. She was gone in a split second after Mr. Brooks smashed into her. She will be missed with an aching emptiness in all our hearts. As my mom was fond of saying, angels watch over us. And I know now there are 6 more watching over us.
I'm David Sorensen, Virginia Sorensen's husband of 56 years, and I'm wearing this Dancing Granny sweatshirt in her memory. I have struggled this past year with Jenny's loss. I am lucky to have family to care for me and wrap me in love so that I can start to glue together the shattered life I now have. I feel sorry she will not be able to hold a great-grandchild or see all of her grandchildren be successful in life, but I pray to her and know she is watching over us. My Christian faith and church have helped me cope with my sadness and find hope and love over hate. Now I want you to use your imagination a little bit. When it thunders, I imagine that Jackson is blasting a home run over the fence. When there is a rainbow, I will imagine the dancing grannies, Jenny, Tammy, Lee, and Bill, with them dancing along its lines. When there's a ray of sunshine poking through the clouds, I will imagine it is Jane smiling down on us. When it snows like it did this morning, I will imagine God's love giving us a blanket and comfort. When I see a blue light, I see this community's commitment to help heal and support each other.
I'm Virginia Sorensen's granddaughter. The things I miss about my grandma are me and my sister doing foot races around the driveway, and my grandma would do commentary and time us. When we first found out that she was gone, I started to cry, and I would cry every night. I missed her so much, and still do today. Darrell Brooks, you took her from me, my sister, and my family. The things we will miss the most are not seeing her again, her smile, her laugh, being able to talk to her, and doing fun things with her. My sister and I pray every night for our Grammy and our family. Grammy, I'll see you in my dreams.
It offends me that you're sitting here breathing while she is not. You are a monster. You deserve contempt and death. Sadly, with no death penalty in this state, I can only hope they lock you away someplace so deep the rats chew on your fingers at night. As for me, this will never be over until the day I'm pissing on your grave. I think it would be fair to say that for your crimes, even God hates you.
My name is Chris Owen, and I'm the plaintiff. I'm here on behalf of another plaintiff, my mother, Leanna Joy Owen. And Mr. Brooks, I hope as I read my statement, you continue to roll your eyes. I hope you continue to laugh and just show how bored and unmoved you are by all of this. It's important for the world to see that evil can be a tangible, living, breathing thing. I think it's important for the world to see what human rot looks like. And to all the survivors, every time he puts his hand on that empty cavity where his heart should be, I hope you all smile, and I hope you take solace in the fact that today is our day. Today is so we can take our handful of dirt, throw it on his grave, and move on. There's not a human with a soul on this planet who could snuff that light out, who could steal Lee Owen from this world and have a clear conscience. You know, I saw you that day. It was just after you ran over the Catholics. I saw you hanging out of the window, looking back with a smile of satisfaction on your face, laughing at an inside joke that at the time I didn't get. I didn't get it when my mom didn't respond to my texts. I didn't get it when she didn't answer my phone calls. I didn't get it until my wife sent me a video of you running over children. That's when I got the punchline. And it hit me like your red SUV, Mr. Brooks. I saw a pure, unrepentant evil in your face that day, and it disgusts me that you are allowed to exist. You did this simply because you were not in a cage. That is what I find mind-boggling. And how dare anyone say the system failed him? The system failed every one of us whose only mistake was to bring their families in the vicinity of Mr. Brooks. That poor excuse for a man should not have been on the streets. I wasn't always a good son. I could be selfish sometimes. I could be mean. But no matter how angry or standoffish I got, she would bend over backwards for me, even when I didn't deserve it. And now I can never tell her I'm sorry. I can never tell her I should have been more grateful. I can never tell her how much I need her in my life. Yeah, shake your head. Shake your head. Because that is what you took from me. There's nothing this court can do that would provide justice in my eyes. So all I ask is that you rot, and you rot slow.
You ran over my mom like she was mere roadkill. You targeted her with your vehicle, and you hit her on purpose. You do not deserve forgiveness. You somehow still get to talk to your mom, but mine is gone forever. I will never forget the things I saw that day. I will never forget the chaos of parents searching for their children. I specifically remember seeing the extreme dancers with gashes in their head and cuts all over their body and blood all over their clothes. In one direction, I saw one girl, probably no older than 10, seizing in her wheelchair, and the mother just screaming, not knowing what to do for her precious child. On the other end, I saw a girl that was on a blanket on the floor. She was screaming every time she was touched. I had my senior prom without her, and she didn't get the chance to tell me how beautiful I looked, and then embarrass me with a bunch of pictures. I had to walk the stage at my high school graduation without my #1 supporter cheering me on. I think about how my mom won't be at my wedding, and I'm gonna save a seat for her, but she won't be there, and she won't ever get to see my future kids, and they won't know what it's like to have a grandma that spoils them. It's as if my mom flying over the roof of your car wasn't good enough for you. You slammed on your brakes to get her off and continued to run her over. I've watched as you gave your closing statement about asking the jury to do what they think is right when you couldn't have just done that yourself in the first place. It doesn't do crap for me because that won't change what happened to my mom. She will not be coming home ever again. She will not ever make me another dinner, and I'll never get to hear her voice or hug her again.
A lot of the victims during their statements thanked a Pepper, who is a victim assistance dog. I'm a huge dog lover, so I thought this was adorable. She would lay on the feet of people or let them hold her throughout the hard parts of the trial just to comfort them. I just thought that was so sweet, and it shows so much how life is just better with dogs. I think that was so sweet that they had a dog to help comfort them during a really, really difficult time. Before the judge delivered her sentencing, she spoke for about 2 hours, and it was really moving. First, she talked about how competent Darrell was and how an insanity plea wouldn't work. And this was one of the first times in the trial where Darrell looked really serious, almost like he was realizing he wasn't going to get off easy by being crazy.
Do the mentally ill sometimes commit atrocious crimes? They do. This is not one of those situations. I've also had, over my 11 years on the bench, of coming face to face with evil on occasion. There are many times, good people do bad things, but there are times when evil people do bad things. There is no medication or treatment for a heart that is bent on evil. Child trauma, bipolar, indifference, physical abuse of a child, or even childhood trauma did not cause Darrell Brooks to commit the acts for which he will be sentenced here today. It is very clear to this court that he understands the difference between right and wrong, and that he simply chooses to ignore his conscience. When there is a fatality with all of these victims is the future that is robbed from them. No future weddings, no future graduations, no future grandchildren or children, no plans. It's just gone. It's all memories. The contrast with, frankly, what Mr. Brooks will have, and that is even a life in prison, he'll make memories, he'll have phone calls. He may even get to hug the people that he loves again. For the 6 individuals who lost their lives, that will never, ever be a reality. On counts 1 through 6, this court is imposing a life sentence without the possibility or eligibility for extended supervision consecutive to one another. 1 life sentence for Virginia Sorensen. 1 life sentence for Leanna Owen. 1 life sentence for Tamara Durand. 1 life sentence for Jane Kulik. 1 life sentence for Bill Hospel. And 1 life sentence for Jackson Sparks.
When she talked about the sentencing for the attacks on the people who survived, I thought it was really cool that she read each of their names one by one and said 17 years for victim B, 17 years for victim C, but she read their names. The reason I thought that was cool was because sometimes it feels like they might get overlooked and just summed up as 62 people that he injured, when some of them had some very serious injuries, and some of them did come close to losing their lives. On November 21st, 2023, 2 years after the attack, the town of Waukesha gathered on Main Street to dedicate a memorial for the victims.
Jackson was my baby. He was a bright light in my life. I miss him so much it physically hurts at times. The holidays are coming. They can be tough. It's wonderful to be surrounded by family and loved ones and the joy of the season. But it's also a painful reminder of his absence. Today we honor Jackson, Virginia, Jane, Leanna, Tamara, and Wilhelm. We will never forget, and we are Waukesha strong.
We grow with grief. We don't get over it. We learn to embrace this new person it's transformed us into. Of course, we still cry at times, but we also still laugh. Sometimes, both at the same time. Grief is just love with nowhere to go. We will never forget what happened that day and what we lost, but we must also remember to keep living. I'll never forget the way my mom died, but I'll also never forget the way that she lived. I'll never forget how she took care of me, of our family, how she was there for me when I needed her. I didn't get to say goodbye, so that's something I try to take into each day that I wake up. I try to remember to treat each moment as if it were my last, because if anything, that's what this tragedy has taught me, to be present, that each day is a gift, not to be taken for granted, that the people we have in our lives are gifts to be treasured. Everyone in and at the parade was serving the same purpose. They were there to spread joy, laughter, and love, a united front in spreading holiday cheer. In all the aftermath of what happened that day, that's what our community continued on to do. We were there for each other. Sometimes we still have rough days, and that's okay. Just please remember to give yourselves and others some grace. Be the light, because life is too short, so let it be sweet.
Darrell is just a monster. This is one of the most sickening cases I've covered. It's just heartless. There's no other word to describe it other than heartless. That's all I have for this case. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.